Hey, welcome everybody. You're listening to Pastured Poultry Talk. This is episode 103. I'm your host, Mike Badger. We're going to dig into some COVID-19 stuff, some coronavirus news, observations, insights, opinions, thoughts. We'll kind of cover a broad spectrum here. I'm not going to propose any radical theories. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not going to say that the government's the best thing since sliced bread. I'm not going to say that all our hope is going to hinge on a vaccine. I'm not going to say that you should go out and eat dirt, that you should do all, whatever, right? I think my audience here, you guys, the listeners, you have this under control. You're day in, day out, running and gunning and have this thing in your sights. And I do truly appreciate that. And I notice what you're doing. One thing about our household is, we are isolated. We're not mandatory at home kind of thing, but kids are off school. Cameron has already spent 2 weeks. He's got another confirmed 2 weeks off. And his school is just now coming online with the online technologies to get some instruction to him while he's off. So he just had his first meetings with his teacher via Google Classroom and Google Hangouts. Got to connect and do some of that stuff. So he's going to start schoolwork officially with his class. And Monday, we had him doing some schoolwork anyway at home. It was kind of hit or miss, but it was mostly just to get him an effort, right? We tried. We're not homeschool parents. We were just trying to make the best we could, and he did okay. So the other thing that Christy had some trips planned. She was supposed to go to a training, an inspector training. That got canceled. Actually, the group that was running the training waffled on canceling the training all the way up until really like 48 hours before it was supposed to start, which was kind of absurd. The dominoes were starting to fall by then. They should have really called it sooner. They didn't. But nevertheless, so she didn't go in that. She's had some other work postponed, and her inspecting schedule is up in flux right now. Like, she doesn't know when she's going to go out on farm to get a look at farms for the inspection, the organic inspection process that she does. The NOSB, the National Organic Standards Board's semi-annual meeting is coming up. That's been turned into a virtual meeting, so they're still going to have it, but all the commenting and interaction will happen virtually. So she's still getting work from that. But more importantly, from all that stuff, one of the risks here for us is Christy is chronically predisposed to asthma, and not more than about a year ago, she had a serious lung issue, some respiration type problems, respiratory problems, I guess is what I want to say. That really took her out, took a toll on her. And, when your lungs are that beat up, it takes a long, long time to recover. So she's feeling good, but she's also very sensitive because she has asthma. She knows what it's like to feel like you can't breathe and you're drowning in your own lungs. I don't understand that, but she does. So she would be in at-risk category, I guess is what you could say. And so that means for us, I do most of the outside of the house running. We have some protocols that we try to follow. She tries to implement, like hand washing, wipes, glove at the gas pump, that kind of stuff. I typically go to the grocery store. I really like going to the grocery store to buy different things that I might need on several days a week, veggies, some dry goods, that kind of stuff, whenever we need it. That's where we're at in the house, is we're sensitive to that, knowing that it's an issue. And I think this is one of the big points that took me a little while to get, is that understanding that risk. And it's a worry, sure. I don't know that you're seeing the reports coming out ahead of time, through Italy and things like that. And the choice of, not having enough respirators, for example, not enough ventilators to go around to treat the sick as they happen. That's the kind of stuff that gets in front of Christy, and she's worried about it. And I think rightfully so, right? I'm not going to tell her not to worry. I think we like I said, we do the things that we need to do to try to put ourselves in the best position possible. And that's what we've been doing without a lot of panic, right? We're not panicked here. We're not hysteria. We're not spreading conspiracy theories around the internet, that kind of stuff. We're just watching. We're hopeful, because I think ultimately what we're going to find out is this social distancing craze that we're all engaged in isn't going to really stop us from getting sick. it's going to just change when it happens. And hopefully it happens at a point that our medical system can keep up. That's my understanding of it. We're not distancing ourselves for the simple fact that we'll avoid this altogether. I think it's just changing how and when and the rate, which is still not a very pleasant thought when you think about that, right? Especially if you're an at-risk type of person. There's all kinds of talk about vaccines. We don't generally get the flu vaccine here because, it is what it is. Most people understand the challenges with the flu vaccine. That's personally where we're at. Business-wise, my biggest impact has been seen around ready-to-lay pullets. I started the spring with a plan to sell 3,000 ready-to-lay pullets. They were full beak, non-GMO fed birds, special order that we contracted with through Moyers, and that was good. I thought that was going to be it. But what I realized early on was ready-to-lay pullet market was going to be a limited supply this year anyway. This was coming out of the new year, out of January. I realized pretty quickly that we didn't have enough pullets for the demand. Like the primary dealer here on the East Coast is Moyers. They just didn't raise as many birds as they did the previous year. So there was a lesser supply of pullets. So that was one thing. So I was trying to get other birds. Like I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to run out of birds. So I was trying to get more. This was back in February and January, and realizing that the birds I was interested in were sold out in the spring and almost sold out in the fall. So not already looking good. You add the coronavirus, the COVID-19, and you have a lot of people looking at the food supply, looking at the disruption in markets and turning inward and being more thoughtful about supplying some of their own needs. And naturally, chickens come into that play, and eggs is a natural place to start. And now you have all this increased demand on top of a short supply, and it's an overwhelming situation, right? It's the wrong time to be short supplied. And so what happened from my perspective was I sold out of my 3,000 birds, and I went in about 2 weeks ago from the time I'm recording. I went in with on a Monday with 150 or so birds in my inventory that were not spoken for, feeling really good, not feeling like I had to advertise much at all. And by the time noon hit that Monday, I was even. All the birds were sold. By the time that first week ended, several hundred on the wait list. As of a couple of days ago, I had about 1,000 birds on my ready-to-lay pullet wait list. This all happened within a span of 2 weeks. And to put that in context, that's orders and inquiries, or really inquiries, for about 1,000 more birds than I had inventory for. Now that just pains me. It just hurts my very being to think about that, because I want to put birds into sale. I want to get those people the birds they need. And I know they're not finding them really anywhere else. So I did what I do and sourced some good birds, some different types of birds, and we got some certified organic pullets with full beaks, which seems to be a rare bird in and of itself. But we got a batch in for the end of April, and I got a batch of trim beaks conventionally raised from Moyers in early May. So all told, I got about 900 extra birds, and as I record here, in the matter of about a day and a half, I'm down to probably less than 100 of those birds available, with a few pending inquiries. So as soon as I went through my wait list and announced that I had them, that's where we're at. We're at about 100 available out of those 900 birds. So the pullet demand is blowing up, and it's tough. It's tough out there. So the other part out there that's really tough right now is broiler demand. And this is a good time to chime in here and just thank my show sponsor, Windy Meadows Hatchery. Windy Meadows supplies pastured poultry farmers like you and me with day-old broiler chicks from their family-owned hatchery in Northeast Texas. One of the things I love about them is that you can call and talk directly to the people who hatch and pack the chicks. And that's exactly what I did when I was trying to find my chicks during the COVID-19 pandemic stuff here. Like, I wanted a batch of chicks to get ready around Memorial Day. I didn't have it planned, so I was calling and dialing. And one of the first calls I made was Windy Meadows. And Benjamin at the hatchery, worked very, very closely with me to see if he could meet my needs and get my timeline. The bottom line is he could meet my needs, but was he going to be able to meet my timeline? My timeline I had set kind of for arbitrary reasons, but for good reasons, if that makes any sense. We were working together, and he even kept me in mind. He contacted me with last-minute availability, kept me up to date. It was that personal touch that I really, really appreciate, and I know lots of you deal with Windy Meadows Hatchery, and the marks are always good. They're always personable, always like dealing with family. They do bring that family scale and a family touch to the day-old broiler chick business, which is very impressive. Talking about COVID-19, if you're in need of day-old broiler chicks at a competitive price, contact Windy Meadows Hatchery. The last time I checked, they were taking orders for shipment within a couple of weeks, when most of the other hatcheries and suppliers are 5 to 6 weeks behind orders. Now, I don't expect that to last very long. So if you're in need of chicks, know that the availability of day-old broiler chicks is changing rapidly. So don't wait. Call them. And you can learn more about Windy Meadows Hatchery by visiting pasturedpoultrytalk.com/WMH. When you contact them, reach out to Windy Meadows Hatchery and just tell them Mike Badger sent you. So I want to thank Windy Meadows Hatchery for coming in as a sponsor to the podcast. They actually approached me a month or two ago, maybe, about being a show sponsor, and we worked out some details. And I think I'm happy to support the hatchery down there. I love what they're doing. I consider the Hales to be personal friends. So love what they have going on. I do recommend you give them a shout. So anyway, I had to work through my list of hatchery contacts, and I eventually got myself some broilers to bring in, brood here the first part of April, and that'll give me 6.5-week-old birds for Memorial Day, which will give me some nice grill packs, like 1.5 pound halves kind of thing is what I'm shooting for there, and the rest we'll just dole out and sell as little bigger after Memorial Day passes. So, and I'm going to turn and burn those. They're going to be Cornish cross. Personally, I like a slower growing bird. I like something that's a little bit different than the Cornish cross. Not because I hate them, not because I think they're really looking for ways to die, but just because I just like a little different bird, right? That's my preference. But for this particular batch, it was unplanned. But talking with Christy, we decided that we needed to put together a batch to get a chicken in play for our local people, the people who we've serviced in the past, people who know us, our friends, our community, much like you're doing, a little extra capacity. And they're going to be Cornish cross, probably fed conventionally, so that we can keep the price down and that we can just get them into the market and do our part with a nice local, affordable pastured poultry protein. This brings up one of the other questions that I've seen kicked around Facebook and all kinds of other places, right? This is the idea of critical workforce and critical people and paranoia. So and hysteria, right? And capitalizing on theft. So we're going to tie a couple things together here, and I won't dwell on this because it wasn't a big deal, but it's something I noticed. And here's another post that I put out to APPPA regarding the idea of essential services. Basically, I was seeing a lot of questions about the availability of feed, chicks, processing, and other essential services. If you're a pastured poultry farm, right? These are essential services: feed, chicks, processing. Take away one of those and you're out of business, essentially, right? So the Department of Homeland Security actually publishes a list of these critically essential jobs, and the agricultural supply chains are in that list. And I'll provide a link at the show notes, pasturedpoultrytalk.com/103, so you can check it out yourself. You probably already saw this. You probably already know some of this intuitively, but in terms of access to inputs, like your feed and your chicks, you should understand that this is a high demand time of year. It's springtime, and the entire country is now coming online to raise meat birds, right? 80% of the country was dormant until just a couple weeks ago, and some of them are still dormant, and they're still not fully online. So this is the time of year where the entire country of the U.S., the entire U.S. is raising chicks. So orders are in. Supply is already being stressed at a normal seasonally high time of year. Now, add to this the fact that farms who have inventory, right, the seasonal production farms for pasture-raised chicken have inventory stockpiled in the freezer to bring them into this point. they're blowing through that inventory. You guys are blowing through that inventory. I already mentioned I don't have a lot of inventory, but it's going to go. But they're blowing through it. So now they're trying to get more chicks. So they're increasing their orders. They're increasing their demand. And that's an extra stress on the supply, right? Then you also have all these other folks that are thinking, well, I'm going to be sequestered. I might as well raise my own food, or holy cow, I'm unprepared for this. I should probably take some situation into my own hands and prepare my own food. And chickens are an obvious and great place to do that. So now you have these extra demands coming in that are unplanned for. And now what do? We suck up more demand. Next thing you know, you're calling a hatchery and they're telling you that, yeah, they can send you chicks in 6 weeks or 5 weeks, and that's not too far out of line with what we're seeing. Because you just can't take and magically take a hatch that's happening this week and make it be 2.5 times bigger or something like that, right? There's a finite amount of eggs in any 1 week, and they can increase supply as they go out further, but that takes time, right? Chicken egg incubates for 21 days. There's the social media paranoia that creeps into this conversation. It's like you start seeing posts on Facebook that say, oh, the COVID-19 is affecting the broiler supply and all that stuff. And that's crazy talk, right? It's not. The only way it's affecting it is through increased demand in an already seasonally high demand period. But the supply itself is stable. All the hatcheries are saying they have chicks, they have supply. They're not dropping off. They're actually had a consistent supply. They're looking to ramp up, right? That's where we're at. So to suggest and to think that we're somehow losing supply due to COVID-19 is wrong, and we shouldn't feed that paranoia. You shouldn't go to Facebook and say stuff like, is anyone else seeing, broiler supply shortages because of COVID-19, or is anyone else seeing feed supply issues with COVID-19? Because invariably then somebody else comes back in, sometimes the same poster, and says, oh, but I got a supply that'll never run dry, right? There's some of those people out there too, and it drives me nuts. And I don't want to be that person. Bottom line there, it's not the end of the world, but you better prepare and plan ahead. If you need chicks, start dialing. Start with Windy Meadows and start dialing, right? Otherwise, you could be in for a big surprise if you're normally like a 2-week lead time kind of person and you're looking for broiler chicks anywhere before like the middle of May. You could be in a world of hurt. So don't wait. And this also ties in the feed discussion. Like I saw some reports of going to feed supply stores or agricultural supply stores and seeing the boxes, seeing the store shelves picked clean of feed bags. When normally they wouldn't be, right? Lots of supply in those situations, right? Lots of options. Seeing reports where that's just not the case. People are panic buying feed, but feed is not going anywhere. Feed is an essential agricultural service that is going to continue to run. The feed suppliers are telling us that they have capacity. They're not affected. It's business as usual. And they may have some logistics complications here and there, but generally there's not a shortage on the supply of feed. So if you're out there panic buying bags of feed off of the big box stores, stop it. Stop it. It's not necessary, because the challenge you're having is you're creating a panic in the market where there shouldn't be any for that service, right? And the reality is when you hoard your feed and you hoard more than you can reasonably use, then what you're going to find out is that in a few months, when you're using that stockpile of feed, you're going to start developing growth problems and illnesses from your nutritionally deficient feeds, because the stockpile you had is starting to lose its mineral content through oxidation and old age. And then you're going to be wanting to ask questions about why in the world your chickens are doing this, or why they have leg problems, or why they're fill in the blank. And so you could be causing yourself more harm long term than gain. So don't do that kind of stuff. Be rational out there. That's the point. Be rational. Realize, I think, for me, what keeps me grounded is, first of all, I don't have a faith in either government, scientists, or other lunatic farmers, right? I have a faith in one man alone, and his name is Jesus. And I think that he has the guiding hand that's going to bring us through. And that's when I look for calming. I look for grace. I look for inspiration. That's where I look to. Not saying that there's not experts and that the experts aren't giving us good advice or that we're not getting good advice on how to deal with stuff. But when you look out into the world, you just got a flood of information coming to you. And, the central line is just don't panic, right? Don't panic, because it's not going to get us anywhere. So you do the best you can with the information you have, and you always look to update that information with the next best information. But panic buying toilet paper and feed ain't going to get it done. It's not going to help anybody. It's going to create a whole lot of other problems. Before we run on out of here, I do want to come up with a story I saw that I think illustrates something pretty important in my opinion. So it might have been about a week or so ago. I saw Will Harris, or maybe probably not Will, but I saw White Oak Pasture send out an email or a Facebook post that basically said, we're not raising prices. We're sold out of everything and we can't keep anything in stock, but we're not raising prices because that would be wrong and we're here to support you. And I was like, right on, go. That's great. And that's exactly the response I expect from a local food supply chain, right? That lives and breathes and touches and sees and supports their community each and every day. That's a deliberate act when so much of a pricing strategy tells you that you can manipulate prices based on demand increases, decreases, right? We hear this all the time, and a lot of you do this intuitively, right? You'll do it once or twice a year. You'll adjust for prices, maybe depending on supply. If you can't keep something in stock, it's a good indication you need to raise your prices. We all get that. This is a different time, and I just saw an update, a story from CNN Business that is basically, this is dated March 25th of 2020. The headline is, egg prices are skyrocketing because of coronavirus panic shopping. There's that word again, panic. Quote, Americans are stockpiling eggs during the coronavirus crisis as they cook more meals at home. That's leading to supply shortages and a spike in prices at some supermarkets. And the stats here, 44% increase in egg sales. And this is nationwide. This is not necessarily pastured poultry. So that's an interesting trend, right? And you're seeing that trickle down. We're seeing that trickle down. We have eggs for sale here. I have people buying eggs they never would have given me the time of day before, right? But they're buying eggs now because they don't have to see anybody and they can just come pop some out of the stand. So the stat here is that wholesale egg prices have risen 180% since the beginning of May. So that's a pretty sharp increase in the wholesale price. So that's going to trickle through to the retail level. So there's this run happening that's depleting the inventory of eggs at a national level, like the commodity, cheap, crappy eggs at the wholesale level. And that's driving a supply shortage, which is going to increase prices. Be that as it may, economics at work, there's not gouging, right? Nobody's making a price gouging claim here. It's just reporting that the panic shopping is causing a sharp decline in national egg inventory, which is driving up prices. But when I first saw that story, I immediately thought back to White Oak's release that said they're going to hold the line. And I'm like, yeah, why wouldn't they hold the line? Because that's what our people do, right? That's what the pastured poultry community and the people like them do in this situation is they don't raise prices. So I put this question out to the APPPA discussion list. We have a new discussion group for APPPA members. And I just asked him if anybody raised their prices. And it generated some discussion. I'm not really too concerned about the discussion points at this point because they ran the map of economics to moral decisions and things like that. And I didn't assert that one way or the other was good, bad, or indifferent. I just asked, did you raise prices? No, less than 10%, between 10 and 25, greater than 25, between 25 and 50%, or more than 50%. 100% of the respondents said, no way, we didn't raise prices. And yeah, that's what I expect. It's kind of in tune with what's happening in the pastured poultry community. And I think that's a point of celebration. That's a point of merit for us to talk with our customers. And everybody can treat this differently. And you might think that, Mike, I never thought about raising my prices. And I get that. But sometimes it doesn't hurt to make these comparisons, to make these things known. When you're out there seeing news that's talking about rising prices of a necessity, of an essential food, of a basic staple, it opens up the door for a lot of conversations. Like, question I have is, how oversupplied is our egg supply that the prices are artificially that low, that a bump in home consumption basically causes this to happen. And a big bump, I'll grant you that. But we're I think the takeaway is we're oversupplied. The stories aren't saying we're out of eggs. It's saying the supply is shrinking. That's a whole different story than being out. A shrinking supply and being out are different. So we're oversupplied, keeping prices artificially low, and a little disturbance in the supply causes the prices to rise. We saw this with avian influenza back in 2015, 2016, when the bird flu took out millions of laying hens out of circulation, reduced the egg market considerably with a real physical shortage, which increased egg prices, brought a lot of people to experience pastured poultry or pasture-raised eggs. This will do the same thing. This is already doing the same thing. I think that's a good thing. It's a good opportunity for us as pastured poultry producers, as people who sell eggs. And not surprised one bit by the APPPA member responses. No way I'm not raising prices. I think that's part and parcel with who I think you are, who I am. I'm not raising prices. I'm not quite selling eggs in a just laid kind of scenario, but I don't have a lot of buffer between just laid and inventory for my stand. So it's a good place to be in, and more people are finding my eggs. And I noticed in the grocery store when I was in there not too long ago that there are eggs on the shelf. They're limiting purchases of eggs to basically 1 dozen at a time, which is fine. There's another. I'll leave you with this last news story from the community that all I can do is virtually shake my head. If you could see me right now, you'd see I kind of roll my eyes and sigh a little bit as I bring up this story. But Joel Salatin wants coronavirus, and Will Harris recommends you go lick some doorknobs in New York City. Isn't it great? And if you haven't seen this, you're probably living in a bubble. This may be the first time you came online. I don't know. But, this is one of the things that happens from time to time. This is not necessarily about Will. I mentioned Will because I mentioned him in a couple minutes ago about his pricing. But, there's no love lost there between those folks, I don't think you could say. But the idea here, and I read that blog that Joel wanted coronavirus, and I can see through his argument. I can see what he's saying. I don't think it's the right time necessarily to be talking about all the things you could have done right to prepare for this. He probably feels differently. I'm not his censor. I'm not his. He's not asking me permission, and I'm not giving it. Now, the interesting part here with Joel's blog, and if you want to find it, you just go Google Joel Salatin wants coronavirus, right? You can find it. I don't think it was a positive message to be putting out there, regardless of what his intent was. As a communicator, as somebody who stuck his foot in his mouth probably less times than Joel, but I've done my fair amount of it. It just happens. You have better ideas, but sometimes you get blowback, and he got a lot of blowback on this one. He got some support too. He clarified it. He got a story in the Washington Post. There's a lot of publicity because it's Joel. I don't want to dwell on it, but I think it's important for us to remember that when we're out there talking about this, when we're living our life, when we're dealing with this inside of our community, that what we say matters. How we say it matters. We don't all have the platform that Joel does, but each one of you has a platform when you're dealing with your customers. So how you respond and how you deal with this stuff, I think matters. How you reason through it, how you're steady in the crisis. You can argue all day, every day, all you want about whether or not where we are is where we should be. But that really doesn't matter at the end of the day because we are here. You are here. You're standing at the roadside rest stop. You just went to the bathroom. You're waiting for your partner to come out of the bathroom. You're looking at the wall at the map of the interstate system and the surrounding state, and you're looking. There's an arrow that says you are here. It doesn't really matter how you got here. You are here. The question is, how are you going to get out of here, and where are you going to go, and how are you going to do it? Those are the questions we need to put time into thinking about. I'm sure Joel will get coronavirus. I'll probably get coronavirus, right? I think you probably will. The odds are pretty good at this point. We're not really social distancing ourselves to prevent us from getting coronavirus, right? We're social distancing ourselves to alleviate a big pressure all at one time on a medical system that is pretty woefully inadequate in a lot of respects for that kind of capacity. So, be that as it may, chances are we're going to get our coronavirus. Joel's going to get his wish. When? Who knows? And he's making a point. He wants to rattle the cages of thought, and he does challenge. He does make some challenging questions, and there's questions that matter that he asks and that he asserts. I would have chosen a different way to do it. I think most of the people I know would have chosen a different way to do it. So where does that leave us? We'll come back again. I'm not going to dwell on this. I really do want you to pop in to the Pastured Poultry Talk Facebook group. If you have questions about Pastured Poultry and COVID-19, you just want a safe spot to talk about chickens and turkeys and ducks and geese. Oh my geese are breeding, they're hatching, they're incubating. I can't wait to talk about them. I will come back here. I don't want to leave you hanging. I don't want to not address the elephant in the room. COVID-19 is a big elephant. Like I said, we're here. It doesn't really matter what you think about how we got here. It can matter at some point, but the fact is, we are here. Where are we going to go? And that where we're going to go, I think we have a chance right now. Is I saw Greg Gunthorp post in a forum someplace, I forget where, but Greg, good friend Greg, said we have an opportunity to shape the future. That's not a bold statement from Greg. I think that's a practical, visionary statement from a leader of the local food movement. Just like Joel's a leader of the local food movement. Just like Will's a leader of the local food movement. Life is such that it is. We're going to keep right on trucking. We're going to keep on moving on with the business of Pastured Poultry. I am going to start a series of introductory to Pastured Poultry discussions. The introductory topic. We're going to run that series. I was going to run it now, but I held it. Didn't mix it with COVID-19. A lot of other busy stuff happening. My life has been disrupted just like everyone else's. And so you're seeing an increase at the same time. Disruption and an increase. It's an interesting time to be alive. We will make it. We will be defined by how we come out of this, not by how we came into it. So with that, folks, I want to encourage you once again to check out show sponsor, Windy Meadows Hatchery. I'm so very thankful that they're with us. I love the Hales. I love that family. I consider them close personal friends. And more than that, I think they're personable. They supply a good product, and they do chicks. That's what Windy's Meadow Hatcheries does. Broiler, day-old meat chicks. Pick them up. They can ship them. Visit pasturedpoultrytalk.com/WMH. WMH stands for Windy Meadows Hatchery. And just tell them Mike sent you. And with that, folks, God bless. Have a great start to your season. Great spring. We'll be back with